In a world that walks the line, there's a rare few who think outside the box together form the crew. To break the equations, not bound to any rule. Exposing to the world the universe's own view. It takes the talent of the craftsman, it takes the mind of the fool, to make the vision realize energy and matter in a duel. To a break, to a duel.
Hello everyone, my name is Nathan, otherwise known as Old Man Builds. We have Joe here today. Hopefully Gerald will be joining us soon. Guys, we're going to be talking about the light body today.
Yeah, that's a great topic to get into. It has so much to do with a lot of the things that we always talk about as far as phenomena that we experience. Both with the technology you guys are developing, but also stuff that you might be observing in the sky, just how the universe works as a whole. It's all tied together. So, great topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm not an expert in this by any means, and I just started watching several videos. Joe's a lot more in depth in this than I am. So, Joe, why don't you let's lead us off on this?
Sure. So, first of all, what is a light body? A light body is your life essence that's within inside of yourself. It's what more or less connects you to your higher self, and also is what transcends consciousness just from cause and effect to more of a calculated journey. It's the development of and mechanism of free will inside the body, and there's all different centers like chakras that need to really be finely in tune to themselves and in tune with one another for your body to work in unison. It's directly related to your overall bodily well-being, but it's also related to your mental well-being and your spiritual well-being. And that's sort of anything to do with your light body always has to do with mind, body, spirit. It's sort of like the trifecta of humanity, so to speak.
So would you call it like a soul awakening?
Well, yeah, so there's a couple of different terms that I've heard used interchangeably, but they're frankly not the same thing. And there is a bit of a process to undergo the realizations of your light body in the first place. Even if everyone has one, although I think that's debatable in the first place, but even if everyone has one, using it to any sort of advantage to yourself is in itself a process. And the first step of that process is at least some form of gnosis. You have to experience something to gain the knowledge of that experience, to understand that you do have a light body and that light body exists.
So Are you saying that not everybody has one, or not everybody's tapped into one to achieve it?
I think that's that's both possibly correct. It is possible that there are people out there that maybe soulless people, people that might lack a light body at all, or who have lost theirs. There's I've heard in esoteric teachings that if you undergo severe trauma and things of that nature, and you don't properly address those traumas, that there are certain points where light bodies could have enough and actually vacate the body, until the conditions have been corrected, because the light body is far more sensitive to the variations than your physical self.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I always thought it was something that you basically, how do I say this? When you're in the right place in your mind, in kind of your spirit, you're able to channel it a little bit. And once you find out that you have it, you have to nurture it. And then once you do, you start to understand the process of how it works. And it doesn't come right away. It comes in stages. So the first thing is you got to realize there's something more than yourself. Then you have to realize what it is you're doing on this earth. Not necessarily to have it all figured out, but just as, do I want to be a good person? Do I want to be a bad person? Do I have myself sorted out in that way? Then once you open yourself to the possibility that you can go beyond what you are and do it inside your spiritual self, then you can start the meditation, start the understanding, start the process of building this whole thing that's different. But it's going to have to interact with your actions as well. If your actions don't match, it won't work. It won't create that environment necessary to put yourself at that next level. Now, I had an experience once, Joe, and it started out, you just give to charity here and there, right? You see somebody out there, you give them some money, you see the people at the store, you give them some money. And it got to the point where it's like, well, I don't really need this dollar. So, you know what I mean? I'll give it to the guy that's homeless over here, right? And then, it's my last dollar. I'm going in to get a soda pop. I'm really thirsty, but this guy looks like he needs it more than I do. So I give it to him. Then you teach your kids how to do it. You know what I mean? Here you go. Give this money to this gentleman over there. You know what I mean? They look like they need it. So that they can understand, hey, there's more to life than being rich. Because technically I'm probably one of the poorest people around, but it doesn't stop me from being who I am. And, it could be a couple cents. It could be a couple dollars. It could be $20. You know what I mean? It really, it's, if I see the need, I give it. Now, that's not the only way to get there, but the things that start to happen after that are strange. So new doors open for you. You don't necessarily think that they're related, but they are. People nicer to you. Things will start to flow better. You're getting less arguments with things. Your whole life at home starts to change. You no longer get mad about taking out the trash. And in doing that, your wife starts to appreciate what you're doing a little more. So things start to fall into place. Now, you get to a point where you actually are in this environment where now all of the good stuff is starting to happen. Everything that's good in life is starting to fall in place. And I got it to the point where my whole soul felt like it was different. Like it wasn't the same anymore. It wasn't going to the normal grind. It wasn't going through to see things harshly anymore. There was no more anger issues. It all changed right then and there. And then you start a relationship, if you haven't already, with the big man upstairs. And it really puts you at peace in your whole life. And that's kind of how I kind of started this. I started fasting, doing a little bit of meditation at the house, not a lot, but in the fasting, it was helping that you would actually be able to speak to God and get a realization of where you're at. Now, it doesn't seem like he's communicating to you. It seems like the little bird on your shoulder is talking to you, but it's him. And, it's not like you're trying to make a deal or nothing. It's just you have a casual conversation. I walk a mile each day. And in that time is my time to speak with him. That's kind of, for me, that's the experience.
Yeah, I mean, and that's definitely a positive and healthy way, to have to have your light body not only in balance, but also to feed it energy, and to be able to emanate that energy to your environment around you. When you have those higher levels of vibrational energy within you, generally, it induces sympathetic resonance in the ether around you, and good things tend to be more likely to happen, albeit not always. Now, I will say that I think for a lot of people, their experience and processes that they go through looks a bit different than yours, you know?
Mhm.
Some people, whether you're in a good, if you're in a good place and then you elevate to a higher place from a good place, I mean, that's pretty good. But a lot of times as human beings, we build up so much imbalance just through existing in society today, that having the sort of balance where you would have some sort of realization, seamless transition, um, is probably the less and least common um, way that goes about this. Frankly, and it's present through all of theology. Um, you know, once you have the gnosis of the existence of the light body, and you start that initial connection, okay, it's not really an awakening yet necessarily at that point. It's just the understanding of the existence, a greater understanding of the existence of it, that allows you to either ignore it and do nothing with it, or nurture it, like you said. And when you nurture it, what ends up happening is you go through this process of death, you know while you're very much alive. You go through a process of death,
Hmm.
and you start to realize that these things that you've held on to for so long, that have uh, led to all these imbalances, these are things that we have to cut loose and detach from. And then you start questioning your role in everything. Your role in all the good and the bad that's happened. And all the blame that you have for other people, and so on. Even if it's something seemingly nominal, if it's something that you carry with you, you start your perspective literally starts to back away from your head and to an external point of view, to the point where you see yourself and what you might have done in even seemingly the most victim circumstance, let's say, what you did to put yourself in that situation. And then there's a degree of accountability that comes with that, accepting the accountability for things that weren't even your fault, just for your role in it. And with that starts chipping away at the ego. And once you get to the bottom of your ego, you kind of have like an empty barrel. And at the empty barrel, you look down inside and you have to see what's in there. And it would be mostly different for everybody, with the exception of one thing that truly has an empty barrel. And you realize that there's really only two things within you, and that's love and fear. And they're actually exactly the same, love and fear, because it's either the love of something or the fear of not the love for something, whether it be yourself or something else. And that's all that's really mostly there for most people. Maybe a couple of other small little attributes, of personal things that you hold closely. And for me, that was like, it was love, fear, and freedom. The freedom to make the decisions. That's what was at the bottom of my barrel. And you really look back, and after you've gone through this process, and it's a painful process, because you start not really understanding. You have this gratitude and appreciation for the suffering that you're undergoing, and it's very paradoxical, but then that's when you are then capable, once the ego is gone and the barrel is empty. Now your chakras are in line and ready to accept a more direct connection with the higher self, and that's the process of a spiritual awakening. When you have a spiritual awakening, it's then at that next layer where you then have to nurture a spiritual awakening, to then be able to ascend. And what does that mean? People use that term so loosely and quick without any sort of explanation. Well, what an ascension is it's when you are in direct contact with your higher self, okay, and your higher self is now becoming part of the whole. Okay, it is being direct. Your higher self is then being a direct connection with part of the whole. Okay, and it's when you have this mind, body, spirit coherence, that could really only be done when your mind and your heart are squared. Okay, that you're able to make that higher connection, and once that's made, then you start reaping the benefits. Not necessarily like you think in your own life, where like your luck just changes and all of a sudden the things around you are good because you're in a good place. Like, it doesn't necessarily work that way. Although if you nurture it, it can. If you nurture that aspect of it, you can. Where people tend to get a little tied up is when you make these higher connections, you realize how good it is to be in those places, because you actually get to be your own uninhibited self in full appreciation of that person, without any sort of judgment or anything of that nature, necessarily. And it's a very loving place to be, of self-love and things of that nature. But then you come back and you just want to spend more time there. So, the whole key to it is that you have to be able to experience and understand these things, but then take the context of these higher self experiences and bring them into your own life.
Well, one of the things too that you have to free yourself from is guilt. So I don't think people realize, how much you carry with you at all times. So I'll tell you a little bit of personal stuff. When I was in junior high, my brother died. And about 8 months later, my dad died. So you get kind of a double whammy. Okay. So I spent my high school years just hating almost everything. And, every time I'd lash out, every time I'd be normal for a while and then just go off the rocker once in a while. Had to be alone for months at a time where I didn't want anyone around me. And, it's hard to sort that out, man. At the same time, you got to now start to provide for the people around you, and you got to start to work into a job and things like that. And I guess I dealt with it by hanging on to stuff that they once cherished. And, it started my brother's car. I kept it for a long time, and then I finally let it go. And, I kept my dad's saw forever. And,
I remember you saying that the other day. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really difficult to let go of something like that. I started a business with that saw. It's just a saw. It's really what it is. But it meant a lot more to me than it would to anyone else. And it was just a way to hang on more to what it was to have him around. And I guess you don't really understand what it is to really release those things in your life. And it's not like, how do I say it? It's not like a trophy or something else. It's I'm holding myself down to that. And now I have to let that attachment go. I have to realize that he moved to a better place, and I have to accept it finally. And, that was it. And for me, it was just difficult.
That's totally understandable. But I mean, what you're describing is also the fundamental difference, between something being a memorial, where, it's the memories that something that triggers the memories, and, versus something that's a shrine. When you have a shrine, you're kind of paying, like, almost like a toll to it, so to speak, where it's like, you have an obligation to it. And it's that attachment that, would actually be very counterproductive and prohibitive of, these sorts of processes, and, make sure that you never heal from these things, and make sure that, your alignment is always off. And, the thing about your alignment being off too is that, like any wave function, you have a whole entire environment of other stuff going on around the wave function that you're at. So, the more dicey that your wave function is and the more it fluctuates, the more likely it is that all these other little passing wave functions are going to negatively interfere with you. It'll throw you off. It'll throw you right out of any sort of sequence or resonance or path that you were on. And it's that easy. you know when your variations are much smaller, these things tend to breeze by you a lot easier.
Yeah. No, I understand that. It was, I had let the attachment go a while back, but I didn't let the physical stuff go till now. And how do I want to say this? It's like you ask yourself the question, if I can go back in time, would I change it? And you ultimately have to realize, hey, even if you went back in time, you can only watch it. And you can appreciate the people for who they were, but you'll never be able to change it. And once you get to that point, then you can start to release quite a bit of it, because you accept who you are now and are comfortable in yourself, versus always wanting to go back and fix something that would make you a different person. And I think that was the point where I started, giving back and giving to other people and accepting who I am and what I've done in life. And, Not that I did anything majorly bad or anything, but it's the little things, The things you don't.
Hey, if anybody understands, you got him right here. He's with you.
Yeah, I
hear you.
Yeah, the tiny little things that just stick with you personally. And it doesn't have to be really big. It could be the dumbest thing. And it's all that attachment that I had to get rid of. Now, by no means am I ready to ascend yet. But am I a lot closer to the process? Yeah. Do I now understand it where I'm accepting of it? Yeah. But am I there personally? Not yet. I made a decision, and this is going to sound weird. I was standing in the parking lot of a Lowe's, and some guy was beating his car. And I mean that like he was smacking the dashboard because the thing wouldn't start. And I thought, well, I could go out and help this guy get off the road. So by the time I pulled in the parking lot, he had moved. And then an older gentleman came up to me and asked me to open a soda pop bottle. And I just saw the look in his face, and I just got this feeling that came over to me like, you can go if you want to. And I just said, no, I'm not ready. I'm just not ready to go yet. I have something I need to do. And now I know that's just probably somebody thinking, hey, that's in your mind. But my whole body and everything was ready to go at that point, and I was in the right place. Since then, I've never had that same experience again. I've never been in that same place again. And
yeah,
it's kind of odd like that, how it works.
Well, when you have experiences like to that extent, those are as clear as these sorts of things come, because being bound to this body limits your perception, and embracing your light body and being able to step outside of those limitations is really what it's all about. Now, whenever you have an experience like you had, you know, that's really
Yes.
almost fully transcending beyond the limitations of your natural perception and actually experiencing everything for what it is. And I've had several experiences sort of like that in various times. Um, sometimes these connections are made because you need to be guided. Other times these connections are made because you're at the end of your life or whatever have you.
Testing. Can you hear me?
Yay, Gerald.
Gerald,
All
what's up?
right. The moment you have not been waiting for. I'm here. All right. I don't mean to step on a lot of what you guys have to say, and I apologize if I do come off like that. But before I start, how are you guys?
Hey, doing good, man. It's
How
Saturday.
was your Christmas?
Merry Christmas. Yeah, no, it was
Merry
good.
Christmas.
Was it good for you guys? Did you guys get enough food stuffed down your throats?
Oh, yeah.
If nothing else, at least that.
Yeah, I must have gained 5 pounds, I'm telling you. I'm cutting out sugar in January, so I've been stuffing it down my throat for the last 3 days.
Truth, man. 'Tis the season.
We're in for a hard wall.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's going to get hard for us, too, because the wife lost her job and things are about to get a little tight around here. We may even have to move soon. We'll see how it happens. See how it all works out, right? But you guys brought me into this conversation. Remember that. Okay, when it comes to the light body, I hate to correct you guys, but in a sense, you're wrong. Your light body is something that you are given, but you do have to correct things that you've done. Sorry, that's wrong to say. You have to correct your understanding in the experiences that you had through traumatic moments in your life in order for energy that's supposed to flow from your heart and mind and outwards through your body properly. It gets stopped from traumas and certain things that happen in your life. And when those experiences occur, like you guys were discussing, you have to work out certain things from your past, and you have to forgive, and you have to let go. But there's a little more to it than that. You have to bring yourself back to that moment. You have to remember how it is that you felt, and you have to feel that feeling again so that you can understand how you thought when you decided that at that specific moment of trauma, you were going to act like this from now on so that you never had to feel that moment again, no matter what the fuck occurred. So you push away, or you decide to ignore certain factors, or you decide when you hear certain things that are going to lead up to that traumatic moment again, you're going to get angry and bust everybody's head open. Don't do that. It's just a thought experiment, right? But my point is, in order for us to heal from those moments in our past that allow the energy to flow from our hearts and minds and outward properly, we have to understand what we've decided to do with all the information around that traumatic moment to try and never allow that traumatic moment to happen again. And that's where our healing is. That's where our forgiveness comes in. Forgiving ourselves, the people that were involved. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you're not really correcting anything we said, because it was literally that we were talking about.
Yeah, I'm just elaborating a little bit.
No, I like it. That's what we need, is that greater understanding.
But the light body is something that comes much later. It doesn't come through a Kundalini. A Kundalini is like a temporary explosion of light, like popping the top off a cap. Right? Your light body is something that it's like bringing your mind, body, and spirit into one. It's not right to say like that because it sounds so damn new age. I'm trying to put it into words. I have so much information on this. I got a binder almost fully on this.
Well,
And
I
I
mean, it's there's different stages of
okay,
all
so
of this.
before we continue, I'm sorry, Joe. Define light body.
So your light body is your energetic, your energetic center, your life force that exists within you. Okay, that acts as a potential, vector for an earthly connection to your higher self. So that's what I would define a light body as.
Okay, define higher self at that point, because then it would just help me describe what I was about to say a little better.
Well, your higher self is your more or less your soul that contains your life purpose, and albeit there's free will, there's certain things that I do feel
Okay, so
we
now,
set out to experience, in our lives by virtue of being born.
okay, now here's where can I respectfully correct you? Like,
Well, you could give me your opinion.
there you go. I apologize to say it that way.
That's fine.
When it comes to the higher self, I think this is why a lot of people that have studied, I won't say New Age, that's wrong. There's so many different books that accumulate to that sort of knowledge, but it's just slightly off in the sense where your higher self is not something that you're trying to attach to. Your higher self is you. And what you're trying to accomplish.
It's absolutely you. Oh, it's absolutely you.
Okay, so your light body, as a definition. Did you want to give your definition before I go ahead, Nathan?
I don't really have a definition.
Okay,
you guys are more of an expert than I am. In this part, I'm trying to learn. I have experiences, but I'm just learning.
Fair enough. So your light body is like an accomplishment in a sense. Oh, how do I put that? I'm trying to put it without sounding too religious, right? Because I'm not religious, but I fully believe. And if we say his name, you're going to get dinged. So I don't want to say his name, but I'm going to say it anyway.
You could say the name.
I fully believe in Jesus Christ. I'm not religious. I'm not one of these guys that goes to church 7 days a week and believes I'm putting on robes and lighting candles. That's all ritual. That's not what Christ originally said. We're to have a relationship with him, right? So when it comes to the light body, from my understanding and from my belief, it's the accumulation of all your experiences through life and your deep understanding of how you, in your connection with God, is the unfolding of those experiences, regardless of whether it's traumatic or not. You're to forgive yourself, and that's a big one. A lot of people can't do that. Even me, sometimes I have a problem with it. In fact, I do right now for a certain subject I won't get into. But we have to forgive ourselves, forgive the person that's involved, and we also have to forgive God in a sense. Because if we don't understand that trauma is given to us with an experience, there's something we're there to learn about, whether it's good, bad, ugly, or in between. There's always a silver lining in that. There's always something to learn. And that's what this whole thing's all about. That's why we're here, is to learn, to expand our hearts in order to allow the glory. That's what it's considered in Christianity, the glory. Okay. Some would call it chakra. Some would not chakra, but chi. Some would call it the energy that goes into chakra. Some would call it the ether. I consider it all of those things in a sense. And it's when you get to the stage where you can have your light body, all you're doing is putting into play the conditions for your light body to be filled. When Jesus Christ was walking through the crowd, he had his light body. And this woman, I think it was Esther, but I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. This woman who believed that all she had to do was touch his robes and she would be healed. But when she did, the energy drained from Jesus Christ, and he even stopped in the crowd and said, "Who touched my robes?" And had a discussion with her and said, "Your faith is strong, go on." So his light body was drained for him at that second because she touched him. And in her belief, she obtained that energy and was healed. Now, of course, his energy was replenished immediately, but that's not the point. The point is that light body that was filled within him could be drained like a capacitor and refilled. It's infinite. And you have to obtain, not through works, but through understanding and allowing experience to work in your life to obtain that situation. Does that make sense? That's
it does. And, that also has to do with, when somebody's at a higher energy level, a higher vibrational level, or however you want to put it, you definitely emanate, energy, both through chi and aura, and it can be transmitted and is transmitted. It's transmitted both to your environment and the people around you. And one thing that's tough, because not everybody is Jesus Christ. In fact, nobody is Jesus Christ.
No, and I'm not exactly. And
right.
I'm not saying
but I'm saying, like, as from the human experience, this is when people end up in these situations where they are a high vibrational being. They have undergone a lot of processes. They are actively coping and maintaining this system that they've nurtured. But then,
well, remember
there is such thing as vampiric energy too.
He said he was the first and the last, but he never said he was the only. And there are some out there that believe Christ energy is what you consider higher beings.
Right. So there is Christ consciousness, and that's widely known and thought of, not from any religious perspective, from
I agree with perspective. I agree with the part of the definition behind Christ consciousness. I don't necessarily agree with the term. It's a little too new agey for me.
Well, I get it, but and that tends to be the thing with a lot of
that's a whole mind.
It's very, like, the words are different no matter where you look, but the meanings are all the same.
Some of them,
just about, I won't say all, but just about all mainstream religious beliefs, okay, they all tell the same exact stories, just using different words, different ways to describe the phenomena. The same as Gerald, who's extremely articulate and knows how to describe complicated phenomena. He had to pause and say, what's the best way for me to really kind of articulate it?
Because there's so many words.
And this is in today's day and age where we're talking to people who know quite a lot of things. There were simpler times where people, they understood basic concepts of all sorts of the world around them, but they didn't maybe have the sort of communication that we all benefit from today, of being able to read books and so on. So how do you get these teachings out to a wide group of people? Is, you speak in metaphorically, and sometimes that's the only way to describe these, because true higher communication is seldom done with words. True higher communication is visionary.
Well, from my understanding, it all comes down to us working on ourselves, as well as being kind to the people around us, because They are a part of us. Just the very experience you have with another human being makes them part of your memory, your experience, your feelings, your every part of your being, whether you're in the same room or just visually. So that, coupled with who you are and what your total sum of you, sorry, let me repeat that in a different way. You're the total sum of all your experiences at that moment, and how you interact with another human being is that experience. And it's a gift being able to interact with another. I kind of lost my point there. Kind of went squirrel on you guys. Sorry.
So I want to actually share something that happened today without going into the details of what kind of brought it up all too much, because it would be way too long of a story, and it's very personal, and it is what it is, but I had a friend over here, before the cast today, and I was like, yeah, man, I want to share something with you. And, he knows me and all the things that have happened in my life. So there was no backstory needed of explanation. But I was like, look, you know what happened. And I was like, and this is sort of what I'm going through currently. And I know how it turned out the last time, and I can't help but feel like, there's synchronicity here and that this is connected. And I know that I had healed from, accepted, forgiven, and stepped through that last situation, but there was also no making it right, and I feel like facing this parallel situation now is just the take two of trying to get it right.
Okay, you're absolutely right. Now, can I add to that?
You absolutely may.
Okay, so there's a book that came out a couple years ago called The Secret. A lot of New Agers grasped onto it as some sort of big.
I want to be clear, by the way, Gerald. I'm not a New Ager. I just know.
No.
I just want to make that abundantly clear to you and everybody.
No, I know, but you're using what's the word I'm looking? You're using like sound language that most people use and have a general understanding about, right? And a lot of those terms come from the New Age community, slipped into our encyclopedia of volume speak.
I think that for what it's worth, the way that they've termed a lot of things is in context of where we currently are as a society and people. They tend to be the easiest to understand. The concepts are all way deeper than the words.
True, but you most people, when you're digging into these concepts, you have to. Well, I shouldn't say you have to. Just by digging into these concepts, you innately start looking at yourself, because they bring up things from your own experiences that are in resonance, if that's the right word to use. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now I forgot my point. We were discussing and what you had said.
I was talking about a synchronistic situation that had occurred that had.
Oh, right. Okay, so it goes to like The Secret, right? That book was written. It was actually taken from the Bible, but they left certain parts out. Now, The Secret is actually the power of prayer. And I'll say that in the sense that when you're in the book, The Secret goes, you get a clear picture of what it is that you want to happen in the future. Then you have a secondary clear picture of you accomplishing this goal, and you're living it. It's part of you. It is you. And then with the knowledge that it's going to happen, in fact, it's already happened, you forget about it.
Yep.
And the universe throws it back to you.
Yeah, I mean that's a form of magic in itself. Are you sure the book was called
now
The Secret?
wait a second. That's a form of magic. Sure, that's what magicians love you to think. And what's magic? It's just a form of lies, of a misunderstood science, or part of the gifts that were given to us by God that were stolen in their understanding. Okay?
Sure it wasn't this book?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not even going to touch that subject. because I'll tell you that book got half of their stuff from the Bible itself.
Oh, no, this is directly based on all biblical teachings. There's a second one. Very.
So
That's a lot of reading.
yeah. Well, man likes to twist things and turn it into something that is devolved from God so that they can claim that is their own discovery or finding. Why?
Yeah, okay, so hold on. I actually want to give you my opinion on that. Is I don't know that it's so much devolve. Okay, as
I wouldn't call it evolved.
It's
Sorry.
repackaged in a way that if you didn't get it from one place, you're getting it from another. And
Yes, but it's misleading, and that in its sense, all in itself, to me is garbage. That's why I throw it out. I don't. It was taken from the source and then repackaged, and somebody put their name on it, who was a Freemason that wanted to profit from something that wasn't theirs. And because they used the secrets of the knowledge that they had already had and what they found in the Bible and mixed it together, they can manipulate the weak-minded man and have them do their bidding as to what they needed to get done. So I don't buy in. Trust me, I've studied this stuff. Dude, I used to read 3 books a day. I had a photographic memory. It was nuts. Math to me was nuts. It was nothing. But after certain car accidents, that sort of didn't. I still have a lot of good memory, but I don't have photographic anymore, right?
I mean, I get it. You know, you give some things up to gain others.
It is what it is. I'm still walking. I'm very happy about that.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's definitely, it's to kind of go back to what we were originally saying. Like, it's my opinion that, you know, there are different steps in the process, and just like because it's steps in a process, it's also steps that can't be skipped. Like,
Well, there's
there
no
are
progress
certain
without the process. You're absolutely right.
right. So there's steps that just simply cannot be skipped, because you cannot get to the level where the next rung is without ascending the ladder fully, so to speak.
So let me give you an example then. Okay. So when it comes to a Kundalini, the way that you're taught to do a Kundalini is through meditation and on each chakra. And as each chakra is achieved, you move on to the next chakra and so on and so forth till you reach the crown. The crown's given you, and boom, Kundalini occurs. The difference between a Kundalini and a light body is a light body you keep. A Kundalini happens once, and it burns out certain light synapses so that it can't happen again.
I'll correct you there, because I mean, Kundalini experiences can happen more than one time, albeit the first time that a Kundalini experience happens, you know, it has to it either has to be induced, you know, or if it's done naturally, it generally, well, I mean, drugs could induce it, you know, or it could be induced, you know, environmentally. But if you undergo it naturally, you know, it comes after an ego death and the equilibrium that exists after an ego death.
See, now in that we totally agree. You have to have an ego death. You have to die to ego, which is dying to self, dying to the old man, right? Getting rid of the old wineskin in order for the new wineskin to contain the new wine, which is the new you in a sense, right? So I get what you mean, totally. We just have different thoughts on how it.
I don't even know that the thoughts are different, and I think the words are different, but
maybe the words
and the experiences are nuanced in terms.
You know what? For me, I guess I'm just such a hard ass about not giving the Freemasons any fucking credit, not one crumple. As far as I'm concerned, they can go
be the truth.
I'm sorry. All right, so here's where I'll agree with you. Okay, is that it's not that Freemasons have it wrong, because they don't. And it's not that all Freemasons are bad, because they're not.
Well, no.
It's just that the overall scope of the organization, and what the end all be all goal and who they ultimately bow to undergoing these processes, is where it becomes questionable and at best. Questionable at best. It would be nice if these same orders really existed, with not the without the same end game.
I get what you're saying, but I look at it like this. Any man who's willing to swear an oath to a dead man who's just some fucking clown with a weird
I've
name,
heard you say it.
It just makes me question their whole mental ability and morals, considering if one of your brothers in Freemasons asks you to hide a body, you don't have a choice.
Well,
Especially
listen, it's like I said, what you swear to in the beginning is your first step into the end game of it. And that's exactly what I'm saying.
Right? Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, hold on. I'm a little lost on something, so let's get off the Freemason thing for a minute.
Yes,
Now,
I have personal bias.
Well,
Sorry.
I know.
It's hard to get off the Freemason thing because it's directly related.
No, we can go back. I just, you guys were talking about the Kundalini. Okay, I probably said that wrong.
No, you said it right.
Well,
Okay.
we got into healing from trauma, and I have trauma I haven't healed from, and it has to do with Freemason. So go ahead.
Okay, so there's the light body. Okay, but you're saying you have a light body type experience before you achieve the light body, or you're overactivating the stuff in your brain and it's going to burn it out. So when you guys had that part of the conversation, I'm a little lost because my understanding is you only achieve the light body once. However, you can have experiences that will lead you to a greater understanding of everything. But are you saying they're intertwined?
They are intertwined.
Yes,
okay, but the thing is that your chakras are not bolted in place upon undergoing a Kundalini situation or a spiritual awakening. They still fluctuate and have to be nurtured and maintained. And frankly, what everybody gets out of a Kundalini experience is going to vary significantly. And I've firsthand seen and know people, okay, who have drug induced themselves through these processes, okay, and what they took away from it was so like it I don't even have the word. It was such a poor representation of what that, like, it was squandered. First off, a lot of people squander it entirely. Like, they realize that it was significant, but they never really nurture it, so they never get any deeper than that. So all they get out of it is this memory experience, and okay, you got your light body, but it's squandered entirely. But then there's people that straight up use it for disgusting and terrible trains of thought. I have a friend who I don't even know I call him a friend anymore. Like, I've kind of written him off like a whole bunch of times, but he always tries to talk to me, so it's like whatever. He literally thinks he's a messiah. He thinks he's higher than everybody else. Almost rule number one of anything in this, in my own heart, is that you have to meet people where they're at. Like, not everybody is going to be undergoing these processes. Not everybody is going to have these sorts of ability to have these multiple perspectives and things, and and not really take it personally, and all these different things. Not everybody's going to undergo that in their life, and that's okay. And you have to meet people where they're at. He thinks that, like, he's high and mighty above all else, and that even if you've undergone it the wrong way. And if you haven't undergone it, well, then you're just one of these sheep people that deserve to be pushed off a cliff. And it's like,
there's a lot of people that go through Kundalini. They think they're higher than everybody else afterwards.
Yeah, and it's disgusting. It's frankly disgusting. I find him a repulsive person. And he wasn't always that way.
Your light body would mean you're part of like a kingship in a sense. And my definition of a true king is A king who's, let's say, he's on his horse and he's walking through his village, and there's a man that's digging his latrine, and he's old and he's suffering. A true king gets off his horse, picks up a shovel, and helps him. That's a true king, not one that goes, I'm better than everyone else. I'll call a few people. You know what I mean? A true king's one that's willing to sacrifice for his people, because his people is him. So you can't really be better than everyone else if you know that everyone else is part of you. Like I was explaining with the experience thing earlier.
So I'll pose a new question, and then I'll draw some similarities, right? So you've undergone these processes. You've gotten a light body, okay? You've made a connection with your higher own self. You know, your soul is present, okay? And
yeah.
you're trying to now ascend, you know, and ascension's way more complicated than being awakened, you know, and
I don't think you can ascend unless you're dead.
well, hold on.
You're not coming back anymore.
Well, let me throw my 2 cents.
All right, fair enough.
You know, so now ascensions can be made in meditative states, okay? And they're amplified, they're potentially amplified through the sympathetic resonance of a whole. So the power of prayer, the power of groups, right? But then there's also other things, you know, there's like celibacy, for instance, you know, and not having a direct connection to a family and things like that. And you ask yourself, well, I mean, you know, you look at like Catholic priests, you look at Buddhist monks, you look at different monks that live in monasteries and stuff like that in Europe, you know, and they all take these vows, and the vows are pretty much all the same. And they're two very, very different belief systems, or so it seems, but they're really not. Okay. What it really kind of boils down to is this higher ascension, the maintenance of the spirit body, and really increasing your internal energy, okay, through your own, you know, lack of possessions and connections to things and objects, to, you know, not really owning anything and not having the burden of those ownerships, not having the closest potential relationships like a spouse or a child, you know, where you have to give yourself to them and sacrifice on yourself. You're giving yourself to something else, and it's got to be all that way. It's all got to be a one-way flow. You know, there's deep meditation, ritual, and group practice of similar thought patterns and resonant patterns that amplify all of this. And these are the ways that in deep meditation, you know, short-term ascensions and long-term connections can be made beyond the higher self. And I mean, you could say you disagree with that, Gerald, and that's okay.
I do.
I know you had your own personal experience, and obviously that was in the context of death, but you know, you still came back, and that's the thing. So,
well, know this, Joe, like, just because you believe differently than me, I mean, no disrespect.
And no, and I don't take it disrespectfully. I want to be clear. I'm just saying, like, you know, I listen. So, like, I mean, I draw like the connection there too. So,
you're right.
What I'm describing is similar to what you said you personally own experience. So, you know, that's where I was going with that.
Yeah, I get that. My personal experience is a little bit different. I sought out to try and prove that Jesus Christ wasn't real. And I got my ass kicked, like handed to me in truth. And the way that my life's unfolded, I can't even explain. I could get into half the stories you wouldn't even believe, even though because they were unbelievable, I wrote them down, dated them. I've had other people that witnessed them sign certain stories because of how crazy they were. And just life, man, because I believed in him my whole life. the experiences that keep coming for me to have a deeper understanding about life, love, hate, violence. It's all part of it. It's not something that should be part of your life, but it is part of it, unfortunately. I mean, we were born into this world, and just the very birth, the very fact of the mechanism of birth is violent in a way, right? You're getting popped through this little dime hole. I mean, come on, your head's the size of a melon, right? Just saying, I was trying to alleviate that as a joke.
So here's an interesting preponderance, like, and this one also transcends through a lot of different religious beliefs too. If you encounter pure evil, in Ascension, like the devil, right?
Okay,
Whether it's after death or something like that, you literally encounter the devil, right? Who very clearly is going to consume you. Okay. What do you do in that situation? And the answer throughout is you show no fear. You kiss the devil and you walk away.
Fuck
and
that. I don't kiss him at all.
Well, it's not very Christ-like.
Off, it was up to me.
The fact is that you show no fear to that, because you'll fear no evil through the valley of death.
It says when you cross the devil, you're supposed to rebuke him in the name of Jesus Christ, all that is holy and true. And why?
Yeah.
Because
that's if you want him to go away.
He's probably the most nicest looking guy in the world. Heck, I bet you he'll give you everything you want. Maybe even all the women you want, or all the guys you want. Whatever it is that you're up for, he'll give you anything. And he's probably the most charming guy there is. Yeah, no thanks. Right? See, remember when Jesus said, he said, I first come here to speak compassion and peace, and to literally, it's the beginning of the greatest love story known to mankind. But when he came here, he was trying to open people's hearts and minds to what truly is. He wanted to show them the truth, right? And because the devil at that time thought he beat him, he actually lost. Because just the very fact that he got nailed to the cross, well, I'm not going to get into the whole explanation on that. We might get dinged on that. But my point being that, no, I lost my point. I'm sorry. I'm having one of those moments. Oh, right. So when Christ came the first time, it was about peace and love, right? The second time, he's coming to kick ass. He's locking them all in a box, man. He's done. The devil's been torturing his people for too long. Not by doing actual things to people, but by people's understanding of the things that they've gone through. They feel like they're broken. They feel like there's no hope. They can't see the light in front of them, regardless of whether or not it's right in front of their face.
Oh, yeah.
That they're breaking themselves in a sense, right? And that's the folly of man. That's where I've done myself. I've made mistakes and gotten trapped in that hole as well. So I don't think the devil as much as is a being or a person, as much as it's a way of man destroying himself because he's not thinking about that evil intent that sits at the back of the bus that nobody wants to talk about.
Right. So if you think about what I said rather than think of it literally, if you think about it metaphorically, that would play right into that. You face the devil of an evil, and you get to make a choice. You either get to fear and succumb, or you get to acknowledge, exude love, and move on. And that's really, I think, more the moral of that. And I say move on. It's really move beyond and past, move through.
I get the idea, but I look at it like this, right? There's certain in-laws that I wouldn't show too much love to. You want to know why? Because they're going to end up living on my couch and never damn leaving. So, you know, there's only, I don't know, that's to each their own. I get your point. I do. I
Well,
don't
but that's
necessarily.
actually a beautiful transition to bring it back to what I was saying before about the highest of the, people in theology. Like
Yeah,
they
but you
don't
don't.
have they don't have that. Um, they'll never have that obligation to somebody to therefore have some preemptive resentment of a hypothetical that leads to something less than love. You see, so by eliminating these variables and becoming a person of God alone, let's just say, you know that issue that would otherwise potentially be a blockage to going even higher than you've ever experienced, because there's always higher,
I disagree. I
right?
think
So
there's only one
then you don't have those variables, and that's why these people commit to these lives.
What do you mean?
I mean, that's why they commit to these lives of celibacy, not having children, living separate of their families, dedicating their life to religious practice and prayer,
Yeah, I'm not so much.
ritual and
I'm not so much into the ritual.
meditation. And
I'll tell you. Don't get me
well,
wrong. I studied it in great detail. I even did my first communion when I was 7 years old. Like, my family was Roman Catholic. I denounced it because my own personal reasons. I won't get into because I don't want to step on anybody else's beliefs, right?
no, I mean, listen, I totally understand that.
Yeah.
You don't even need to explain it personally. I mean, maybe somebody that's watching might, but
Well, you know what? I look at it like this. Most Christians, they get it wrong. Like,
oh, they absolutely.
they'll spit on other people because they have a different belief or a different religion, and they don't want to try to understand what it is that those people, that's so wrong to say, other people believe than themselves. And because of that, there's a disconnect. There needs to be a bridge. There needs to be, we have to have an understanding of how others believe at the same time as trying to give an understanding of how I believe and we as others believe, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I absolutely do.
And how does that get back to the Kundalini? Is that what you were going to ask, Nathan? No, because it's relevant. Go ahead.
Well, I think I've already figured out my way of understanding it. So here's the thing: you guys are talking about the devil and God and things like that, right?
Yeah.
What if you were born with both sides, and it's really your expression of each that gives you who you are, and you fundamentally develop into one side or the other. Now, there's awakening that can happen to push you to one side or the other, but I think the true struggle with the devil himself is in you. And once you defeat it in there and you realize you're a good person, you realize who you are, you take all of that, and then now your inner side glows outward. You're ready for the Kundalini. You're ready for ascension at that point. And I don't think you're there before that. And I don't think that once you start to ascend, you see the devil. I just don't believe it at all. I think that you as a person have to defeat that before you get there.
Yeah, that's partially true for sure. I would say I partially agree with you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't disagree with that either. There's a good point there. I mean, talk about real quick, like some of the things that you get out of your light body when it's in proper equilibrium. Forget even, what level of it or anything like that for a minute. And just like, well, okay, so your light body is there and it's active, right? Just like the crystal, you've activated your light body, you're aware of it and you're nurturing it. So what do I get? Okay, well, you get a lot of things. And, again, what you get out of it is really on a person to person basis. depending on how you then know the things that you get and know how to follow them. Because that's really what it comes down to, is how you follow these things.
I don't believe you can nurture your light body. I believe that your light body, you don't get it until the point of death. You have to work on yourself right up until the point of death. Regardless of whether or not you've had a Kundalini or not. And again, like I said, my beliefs in Kundalini is like a capacitor. You're not actually getting your light body. Your light body's given you either at the point of death or as a gift from God. When you have achieved your full light body, you can walk through walls. You can do everything that's in the Philadelphia experiment.
I disagree with you, and I'll explain why.
Okay.
Because your body is really a vessel for this light body. Okay. And
your body's of flesh. You can't contain light. How do you contain light in the flesh?
Like, that's like asking, how do you contain, plasma in a xenon bulb inside of a light bulb? I mean,
I get your point.
It exists.
I get your point.
It exists at the cellular level in every bit of you, because without it, you would be non-animate. And then depending on the, I mean, this is.
I'll give you that, like a spark, you mean, so to speak, right?
What?
Like a spark sort of thing, you mean?
Absolutely.
Okay, I get that.
The life spark, and whether that life spark just fires to shoot, neurons in your brain, and pump your blood, through your heart. I mean, if that's what your spark does, that's what your spark does. But then you're really not awake to anything, and generally, you're just kind of existing. But hypothetically, if you want to put it that way, so there's no disagreement, if you have a light body that's activated, okay, within your vessel of a body, that's connected to the ether energy around you through your own emanation, right? Yep. Well, what do you get now that you have a more direct connection to something outside of your physical body? Okay. Well, what you get mostly is intuition. That's the primary thing that you get, is your intuition becomes much more sensitive. What do you get? You get the ability of multi-perspective thinking based on cues. You get to look around your environment and no longer see the environment the same way that you saw it, because you get to see and almost intuitively understand where people and things are and different scenarios are that could play themselves out, and then use your gut intuition to then, hopefully make the proper decision. I think go ahead. I was going to say, I think that one thing that when you first start getting these heightened awareness, expanded awareness situations, becomes is, you end up sometimes in another form of self-conflict, because your mind doesn't always want to accept what your heart and your stomach know. And then that's up to you then to see
conflict. That's no man shall sit same. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
So like, it's then up to you to be able to resolve these things and make the decisions, and it's also important to not let these things that come into your life unexpectedly knock you off point. It's up to you to be resilient, and this actually gives you the ability to be resilient, to find yourself at a low point, but know that you can bring yourself back up to a line.
And I disagree, because then that negates God. Man can't do these things. If man could do these things, we would have stopped sinning and screwing up the world so many fucking years ago, man.
listen,
So I
but
disagree.
but
In that
Gerald, no,
sense, I
no,
disagree.
Gerald, but that's the human condition. Just because you
Nah,
can,
I don't know.
just because you can, this state of internal conflict, you know, like will sometimes lead you to still go, because the mind is a powerful thing. That's what it comes down to, you
Sure.
know, and you don't really know, but
And
you
if
feel it.
you get okay, now here's the other thing that we started with that I never got to finish. If you take into account the power of prayer, which some consider the secret, it works in both ways. And what is that? Well, okay, let's say so. The Freemasons, how is it put? So a man thinketh, so a man doeth, or is something to that effect. Well, in a sense, if you think shitty things about the world, no, that's not the right way to think of it that way. I'm trying to put it in terms everybody can explain. If you call negativity to you because of the way that you think and the way that you look at the world, then it's going to come back to you. The universe is going to give it to you as an evil lump of coal, right? And if you think that the world's all butterflies and daisies, you're going to get butterflies and daisies. That's what the secret defines, right? But where's the connection between the spiritual? Where's the connection between you and God? Your soul isn't separate from God. It isn't separate from you. You are your soul. You're in a meat sack. Your body's temporary. It's 100 years. It's nothing. When you die, do you think that you, and this is a question because it goes to the light body. See, when you die, your light body needs to be activated so that you can continue forward. If it isn't, then what happens to you? You enter into the void, and then what? Do you dissipate? Do you go to what some consider hell? I don't know, but you ain't got your light body, and without light, you ain't got you. Because light defines everything.
Well, hold on. I just want to go back to this. The world's still screwed up because there's people who make the decision to do the wrong thing
Yes.
and follow the bad side
Yes, but
instead of
why?
doing the right thing.
But why do they do that? Is it because they've chosen to do evil, or they never healed from traumas that happened in the past to them and just can't see any way out of it?
At some point, it becomes a choice. Your environment has to stop at some point, and you have to realize it's a choice. Now, you can say that'll never come for some people, but I know it does.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. There's always a point.
For a lot of people, it comes at the 11th hour, you know, but some people, I don't know.
I was at the 11th hour.
You know, like it's a tough thing because because it's so personal, because it's your soul, and we're all on different journeys, and our purposes are all different, and our energies are all different. And to say that even if you're balanced, you know, that you have the same energetic composition or even capacity as another person potentially, you know, is ridiculous, because some people just have a much higher ability to be able to sense the things around them, to be able to take in the etheric energy, to empower themselves, to get through hard times, to make the hard decisions. But what it all kind of boils down to is what Nathan said before. So why do people people make these bad decisions? So Gerald says, well, but if they know it's the bad decision, why do they make the bad decision? And the answer is because the bad decision is generally the selfish decision. And it's usually to prevent harm on yourself, and therefore causing harm to someone else. And that's what inherently makes it a bad decision.
But
and
again,
that's what also makes it complicated for people who, you know, are more aware than other people are. You know, it doesn't make them better, just simply more aware at a different stage of this. know,
goes back to them not healing from their trauma. That's why they made the bad decision, because they're trying to stop themselves from not going through that trauma again. But they're consistently put in that place, like you talked about with what was going on with you. Life throws at us the same situation with different names and different times all the time.
all the time.
Because there's a lesson that we're not learning in that. And until we learn that lesson, it's going to keep repeating, regardless of whether or not you do this different or that different or that different. There's something you're missing. You need
Okay,
to
so
learn something in that.
in the beginning of the conversation, Gerald, you told us that we have to put ourselves in that situation and face it again and be able to overcome it.
Yes, because that overcoming is the thing that you have to learn, that situation is trying to teach you. That experience, there's like, you got to pull it apart like almost like a computer. There's a ton of data points in it. And you have to look at that experience and look at your life. Look at what it is that you think you might have done wrong. Look at what it is that other person might have done wrong. Then look at it from a third person's perspective, or even go ask a third person and look at it how they think you both have done something wrong or not. And then define the situation for yourself on who you are, how you think normally about people, and how all these factors come into play, because it matters. The only way you can heal from your trauma or to understand that thing that's happening again has a traumatic moment in it that you missed, that you need to learn from, is to pull yourself out of it and look at it like a data point from a computer, I guess you'd say. You know what I mean? Did I explain that right, or did I get off the rails there?
I mean, I understood what you said, but it was a little off the rails. I mean, but it's
Yeah,
fine.
sorry.
Well, I'll say this. Look, let me bring this into the technical side a little bit, and then I want to ask a question about the Knights Templar. So the technical side of this is, if you're playing with the same stuff that we're playing with, you better be right with yourself. And we've said that over and over again. And I can tell you from the experience that I have, I know I'm in the right place. And I know when I should never be near it. And the two emotions do not cross each other. They not can be blended. It's one or the other. And there's times you walk away, and then there's times you continue on. Now, because of what this stuff does and how it interacts with yourself, then you're playing with that next level. And I personally think that there's an aspect to that brings you beyond where we get normally. And I think Joe believes the other way, that we can get there on a normal basis. I guess it's defined in how you see it. But that's just my thing. I thought I'd throw that in there. But I had the question of, Gerald, you didn't like the Templars, the Freemasons, but are you okay with the Templars?
They're both cut from the same coin. One came before the other. Freemasons took over the Templars.
But did it change?
Joe wasn't wrong when he said there's good people in both. It's just the fact that go ahead.
Did it change? So it used to be, okay, you ride in on the glory of God and you are not afraid of death. Okay, now I don't think it's that way. So
they were also looking for the Holy Grail at that point too, right?
Well, you know, the whole thing about the Templar in general is that, I mean, their belief system is not all that far off of what we're discussing right now, and in the context of Jesus Christ. And the biggest problem with the Templars wasn't the Templars at the time; it was the time and place that they came to be in the first place.
In the beginning,
because they had to do all of their practices in secret. Because it was alchemy, and those types of thoughts were considered, heretical, and get you hung
Yeah,
and
because
burned at the stake, which that's
church wanted
ultimately how they
control.
scapegoated them out of existence, and that's how
Yeah.
the Freemasons came to be.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I have to agree with you definitely on that.
Okay,
The
but
church
what
wanted
I'm
to
saying,
control, so
I guess what I'm saying is, it seems to me is there is a divide between the two, and here's what I mean. Spiritually, they were in the right place. They did the right thing no matter the cost. Now they don't. It seems different to me, and I don't know why. It just does. They were going against someone who put himself in the place of God and acted like it on earth, and they had their own belief in the Almighty, and they took that to the grave. Now I don't think it's the same.
There's stuff you're missing about the original Knights Templar, though, that, you say that they were in their right place, but they were in the right place for themselves, and they were in their secret order and really didn't have the interactions, like I said before. See how the dots connect? They didn't have the interactions with the outer society as a normal villager did. They were part of their organization. That's where they stood. But they became so wealthy that they weren't necessarily utilizing it for just selfless charity, because they're these godly people protecting the cross.
exactly.
They built themselves temples, made themselves rich, and acted as Shylocks.
Exactly.
So you have to understand that about them. Like, they were richer. They had more money than any country that existed in Europe at the time of their existence, to the point where I forget, King George of France or something like that. Whatever the case.
Same thing the Freemasons have
The
done.
guy, right? How they ended up falling was they loaned money to somebody so much so that he could never ever pay them back with all the money in his entire country. So rather than pay his debt, knowing that they might come after him, he just said that they were all a bunch of gays, and
No, I understand all
they
that.
worshiped the devil, so they burned him.
I think you guys are misunderstanding a point to it. Okay.
Sorry if I am.
No. Look, I don't like all the ritual stuff. That's not for me. Okay, so please don't misunderstand that. But in order to bring the truth to today, in order to get the understanding to today, you had to hide it. You had to put it in a place, but they didn't just put it in any place. They put it on every church that they were involved in. Every single one of them is a roadmap to this technology that we work on. So I guess if Gerald's coil wasn't given to him by God, how else are we going to get there? How do you read those road signs without it? And I understand the whole thing of maybe some of them went off the rails. Maybe some of them used it for wrong. Maybe we're misunderstanding part of it in the fact that they put the technology for us to understand it, to get to their understanding that they had back then when they were looking for the Holy Grail. And so there's a good and a bad side to it. I guess it depends on the person who is doing it. But there has to be some point where we would know it without being given it. And they did it. I can tell you right now from building this stuff, I can go look at one of their temples and it'll be written all over it. All over it. Every single frequency, every single thing is right there.
Yeah. Don't kid yourself. I don't know if I've ever made that clear. Let me make that clear right now. I know for a fact that the Knights Templar control ball lightning. In fact, I also know that the Freemasons, up to a point, control ball lightning, and then their order manipulated the lowers, and certain people died, and they lost the whole understanding of it. But it's still there. Don't kid yourself. Otherwise, Bob Grenier wouldn't. Anyway, let's just say in the temples that he shows a lot of videos from that are Freemason temples, there's a lot of information about ball lightning. They know exactly what it is. And what is ball lightning? Well, it's this energy we're talking about. Why do you think they want to control it? If it was inscripted on all the Knights Templars temples and old churches and old ruins, why was that so important? Because it's the vehicle of the soul that takes you to heaven. Why do you think they want to control it, man?
So
Bob Grenier himself says it's God's toolbox.
Well, hold on.
It's part of it.
So this is what scares the living daylights out of me. You have people out there who don't know any better. They mouth off and they say, I would give it to everybody as some kind of nuclear weapon or some kind of weapon.
not naming names.
Yeah. I fear those people. Okay. And I guess I don't want them to have it. And knowing what it does, I especially don't want them to have it. So I don't know what to say about that. I want everything to come out, but I'm not sure that those people should have any part of it. And I guess it's on a case-by-case basis. You have to judge each one of them. But when you're coming out and saying it, I'm not for you. I'm not there for you. You're not leaning on my shoulder. You know what I mean? And I'll forgive, but I don't forget, and I'm just not there. If you did it for the right reason and you put it on the temple so we'd find it, if you want it out there to help people, I'm 100% there for you. If you want me to teach the other side of it, there's no chance.
Yeah.
Just understand it. There's not a chance in my lifetime you can kill me, and I will not tell you that answer.
Yeah, me neither. I'm not into weaponry. I don't believe in it.
I mean, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, right? That goes back to the whole, well, then you have to judge them out one at a time, right? That goes to the moral of the story in this book.
Yeah.
You say, yeah.
John doesn't like a lot of books.
Well, you know what it is? I don't like the Egyptian sort of take on it because I hate to say it, the Egyptians are thieves. They fell upon that civilization, took what they could, called it their own, and
I'm not saying that they're not, but they actually made what they potentially made what they found work. At least as their writing, because their writing would suggest that they did.
Their understanding's lacking, though, Joe.
Listen, I don't necessarily disagree, but then again, you look at the Christian Bible, right? And you have the Old Testament and the New Testament. Then you have the Jews. Jews only believe Old Testament Torah stuff, right? Then you look at New Testament, right? The funny thing is that the path to all of what we're talking about here with the light body and ascension and basically making it to heaven, put it that way, right?
Yeah.
It was written in the Old Testament, okay, and then was written in the New Testament differently, okay. The funny thing is that I'm one for the New Testament way, okay, personally.
Actually, it's written in the Old Testament.
All the Old Testament stuff is really more mystical than the New Testament stuff. You see,
the understanding of man that wrote it at that time was mystical. But if you look at it,
it was all mystical. So when you look at stuff like the Kabbalah and stuff like that you see that, and it's just like Christianity too. You have your churchgoer, you have your pastor and your deacons, and then you have your priest, and then you have your higher people, and then you have people like me who disconnects from all of that dogma of it.
That's not Christianity, dude. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm using this as a matter of, I'm getting there. So then you have guys like me and Gerald who we're on our own path under the understanding of these certain teachings and concepts and things. Even if we see it differently, it's still a similar path. That said, then you look at the Jewish side of things, and then you have your temple goers, and then you have your rabbis, and then you have on different levels of it. You have Orthodox, Hasidic, and all these stricter orders, and then within them they have their elders and so on. And these elders in the Hasidic and Orthodox communities and so on, these are borderline modern mystics, and they're trying to amplify light bodies and manipulate their light bodies in ways to benefit them and their community.
To get to heaven,
That's how they personally use it, but it's magic. Don't be fooled. They're magic practitioners in the Old Testament.
I disagree. Magic doesn't exist. Magic's just an understanding that's
magic is manipulation.
Well, yeah, it's manipulation and lies. That's what it is.
Magic is effective and unperceivable manipulation, and when
If
you're able to
minded and don't look into things, absolutely. And I'll say that till the day I die. If you're weak-minded, magic works. That's magic. It's lies and manipulation. And you have to be weak in order to be manipulated. And how are you weak? You're not reading. You're not looking into it. You're letting somebody else walk your life along the line because they want it that way. That's, you know what I mean?
No, I agree that it's poorly minded, but weak minded, I'm not so certain. It takes a lot to fully believe your own line of shit. Unless if you're mentally ill, I guess, which could be part of it. But
I see what you mean by that. I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but I see what you mean, though. Yeah, I do.
Magic is just something I don't understand yet, but
we will talk about that another day. That's a whole nother tale.
That's all it is. I don't believe in magic. Never have.
I mean, everything to do with the understand how to achieve a light body, and I will say that without the teachings of Christ and the belief in Christ, or some analogous, I'll try to make it, more inclusive by saying some analogous of Christ consciousness, consistent with him. But as far as like understanding the self to get to the point where, you're out there and exposed and whatnot and vulnerable enough to reach the points where your light body is actually pure enough to reach a state of activation in a natural form, realistically, it's all hermetical teachings that, if you were to understand and follow any sort of hermeticism, you would get there.
I checked the hermeticism. I've read your hermeticism, and yeah, it's all been stolen from ancient texts and just slapped another name.
But hermeticism is ancient text.
Yeah, like Trismegistus and all that. Like, yeah, I'm just not buying it. Not my cup of tea, dude.
Look,
I studied magic. I know I studied demonology. I studied psychology. All of those things. I'm not coming from a place of just like sitting in my chair in the basement.
Oh, I know you're not, Gerald. And I mean, listen, we don't have to agree at every point. Like we certainly don't. I mean, and interestingly, I mean, I personally believe that there's more than one right answer. Oftentimes, when it comes to things like this, well, in fact,
there's no way to the Father except through me. In other words, there's no way to get to heaven except for an understanding through Jesus Christ. So, well, I don't know if I believe what you mean by there's more than one way.
Well, if you reflect back to what I said before, I already said that I personally find that the way is through that or some type of analogous of that, and that's it. For me, it's Jesus. For someone else, it may be the same principles and ideas that Jesus represents is the same as believing in Jesus.
Yeah, well,
that's sort of what it is. Here's a great one. You want to understand light body?
I do have a question once you show your book.
Yeah.
This thing. Okay, this thing is a monstrosity.
Wow, okay. It is.
The Red Book. The real deal. It's Carl Jung, man. This book was his own personal experiences through enlightened states and,
Wasn't
and
he a
higher
communist,
perception.
Carl Jung?
What?
Wasn't he a communist, Carl Jung? Is
He
that,
he was
am I
not a
getting that
communist. He was German. He moved to America at some point, but
that doesn't mean he's communist. I know some good German people too, right? It's not that
Yeah.
being communist is like evil, but if we equate it to all the propaganda we learned out of World War II, then yeah, maybe. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no. Carl Jung was friendly with and a companion of Freud for a long time until they had a falling out.
Oh, yeah, I used
Until
to.
they had a falling out. But
All right.
was looking for a couple of here, like these are just some like visuals and stuff that he painted himself and whatnot about some of his visions.
No, those are familiar. Look at the one on the other side. That's very familiar.
Yeah, it's Abe Pointed Ray out of Apollo, the sun god. Oh yeah. One looks like Satan Claus.
Butterfly.
Right.
One's a butterfly.
Yeah, I
You
mean
ever-
they go on, and I mean the writings in here are absolutely fantastic. This particular copy of it has all of his German manuscripts with the photos, but since like it's an American book, it has a whole entire English translation of it that was properly translated and signed off on by the family, and then references back to its original page so you can see the artwork. It's very cool.
So Jung was Freud's student, and Freud was the one in love with his mother, right?
No, Ford was the one that said that people wanted to, give give the rocks to them.
Even somebody said it in the comments section. Freud was a cokehead. Yeah, I heard that too. Like, I can't really
don't care.
I thought
Look,
he was an idiot personally, but that's my opinion.
that butterfly's significant. Did you
does
guys
look
miss that?
It looked like Tesla's first rotational magnet motor. Well, electromagnet motor. That's what it looked like to me.
Not only that, they start to describe some of that stuff when they start to describe how the Earth works. So it's significant without the outer form of the Earth. That's what the electrical signals would look like. So that's why it's significant to understand it. So
Right.
I did have a question for you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
For both of you, but this kind of Gerald is in your wheelhouse.
Okay.
Every so often, the Earth resets itself.
Mm-hmm.
We are continuously going in a cycle. So my question is, we're lost on the perception of time here, and I think in a big way, and it has to do with our history being all screwed up.
Yeah, we've been lied to.
But there comes a point where there's a reset that happens on our Earth, and there are scars on our Earth to prove it. And what I'm saying to you is it happens in a cycle every time. And every time we get this belief, build up, and religion, then we get to the true understanding, and then we restart. And it happens to every single civilization.
Okay,
So-
but you're missing a part of that. Keep going.
Okay, so the teachings of Egypt may have been right for their time period. The
Yeah.
teachings of the Greeks might have been right for their time period.
Yeah.
Our teachings are for here and now for our time period.
That's
So-
the difference between Christ. Apparently, he was through all time periods.
Right, and I don't disagree with that. What I'm saying is we're looking at these stories and picking out the individual differences is maybe it's a common story told in every cycle based on where your cycle is or what your civilization in that cycle is.
Oh yeah.
So here's my comment, and in response to that, but also looks like Arb in the chat said, so they got us on loop. Why? Well, I guess for the same reason that, as I said earlier, I'm having a synchronistic experience in my own life where I didn't get it right the first time, and now I get to do it again.
Oh, see, that's a key point. Okay, go ahead.
So why are we on loop? Well, because the Egyptians found it and didn't get it right, so they got to do it again, sort of. Or we got to do it again. Greeks might have got it right, but I might have found it, but they didn't get it right, so they got knocked out. Now, did we get it right? Now, here's what I will say is that in looking around, we like to be very hypercritical of, the state of our country, our planet, or this or that, but realistically, we are more at peace now, despite the ongoings, than we really have been in a very long time, if not ever in Earth's history. There's been warring throughout history. There's more people able to and giving now more than ever before. Charity is a widespread thing. You try to help other countries. If there's a flood, you're flying in supplies. We're better people now than we have been able to even be, as far as we know, in the past ever, by orders of magnitude. And then you take a look around as far as the last 5 to 10 years or so, and people who have an understanding of, belief in, and following of the very principles that we're discussing right here today, has grown exponentially. People moving away from the mainstream, go to church on Sunday, go through the ritual. And, people don't understand, and I don't want to get too sidetracked, but people don't understand that when you go to church, it's not that you get nothing out of it, but you're certainly giving more than you are receiving. Okay. All of that energy that you're giving at church, really manifests as the most received energy by the person performing the ritual, because that's how those organized religions.
I'll agree to disagree with you on that one.
That's fair, but I think that, and we even touched on that previously when we were talking about cathedral shapes, resonance, where it's all the loudest and hardest, how it's different if you're standing up at the podium than it is if you're in the pews.
No, I agree with you on that. Yep. What you said was church. Church, in my understanding and very definition, is different than going to a building that you call a church. Church is 2 or 3 gathering in the name of Christ, no matter where you are, your basement, a park, wherever, just to read the word and go over what it is that you believe. That's church. Everything else, that's religion.
Yeah, but you're taking it out of context of what I was talking about.
I just wanted to clarify.
I said most people that go to church on Sunday, which kind of implies.
Oh, fair enough. My bad.
It means, the 80-year-old woman in the Cadillac, driving into the.
Hey, sorry, Joe. My big mouth got in the way.
No, it's all right. She probably got shoulder pads on, the whole 9 yards, right?
Right. So. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so in the context of that, the person performing the ritual is the one actually receiving the greater benefit than anybody else that's practicing upon. And that's a huge misconception that people don't necessarily always realize. But people have been falling, not necessarily entirely falling away from that, but opening their mind to more like what Gerald and I are both saying, just about this inner practice belief through gnosis, through experience, through actually going in there and getting dirty with yourself and your internal stuff. That is all these blockages, that is all these things that are preventing you from being an emanating energy ball, and that's, I think people are starting to come around to it. So if we're going through a cycle now or soon, maybe we stand a better chance than we have at the past. Whether or not we've made it, I don't know.
Okay, so your question, Nathan, was we're going into a shift, and why is it? Okay, so after listening to Joe's explanation, because I'm just running it around in my head, right? Go back to the original question. I believe that mankind goes through cycles And it's like the understanding is layers of an onion. There's many different reasons why we go through the cycles, but one of them being is that man, in its accumulation, becomes more greedy in their hearts in the numbers that are on the planet than not. So because of that, a balance and imbalance is created. And through that, I believe that we have a pole shift, because I believe that our earth is directly connected to the accumulated effect of mankind's emotions. So if man becomes negative in its ways, then the earth kicks back and flips its pole, and we get shooken off like flies. And I believe that we're actually very, very, very close to that now. In fact, they're even talking about it. Go ahead.
I don't know that it's necessarily that way. So let me say it the way I would think it is. In order for us to get the next level, we must take what we've accumulated and learned and pass it on after the shift. So
yes, that's part of it.
The biggest failure we have is after the shift, all the people who learned it and knew it don't teach it. They start to teach it, but then they fail. They're not bringing society back to where they were before. So some people have in society have maybe achieved globalization, where you see Egypt everywhere, but they weren't able to teach their knowledge to the next level. So we always say, oh, there might be another civilization in Antarctica or somewhere else, right? And you go, okay, or Middle Earth, however you want to see it in the way that you think. They're not passing on that information and making us better people and starting over at their level. They're making us restart. Well, and I think it's one of the biggest failures of how we get to the next level. We have to not bring back the bad of society, but bring all the good of society forward to the level where we left off to grow. So it always says, like, we always want to achieve to go to space. And why is that? Because we want to hit that next level. We want to go beyond it. So in order to do that, when the things like this shift and technology gets wiped out and we have to start over, you have to decide humanity is worth it to start at that next level, not restart as a whole society.
But that's the thing, though. The people that had this power back in the past on the last reset, which would have been the Great Flood, they kept it close to the chest. They're the ones that sat on top and said, well, we're the kings of the world, and used their knowledge for their own benefit. This is supposed to be used for everyone's benefit. So whether or not it's after the great shift, the next shift, or whether or not it's now, well, that remains to be seen. But it's definitely real. We have it, and it could change mankind as we know it. Will mankind accept it? I don't know. I don't know if it will right now. There's a lot of people out there that are just so damn greedy. They would much rather dissolve somebody, if you know what I mean, than allow their paycheck to dwindle. And their paycheck depends on what? Maybe oil, maybe gas, maybe, you know. And those things, you're talking big dollars, man. It's nothing to take somebody in cost-wise and have them dissolved in comparison to making, what do they make, $1 million every 5 minutes? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's short-sighted. So
no, I agree with you 100%.
Those people will come and go. It's the belief in humanity that I think is the biggest thing here. That because, you know, greedy people come and go all the time, and they end up, you know, wherever they end up. I think it comes down to, when we restart, do we believe that they'll take the good side of it and not the bad? Because every single one of these technologies has the chance for the greatest of goods.
Yep.
But it has the ultimate evil built into it. So you as people have to decide who you are. You know, for the same technology, I can make a thruster I could turn around and take that and make it into a death ray. So that right there is why you don't let people who are unhinged take care of this stuff. So do I ultimately believe in the end that the people are going to be true and good? I mean, that's really what you got to decide. And you have to be able to limit the evils while promoting the good. I guess it's just where it turns out.
Well, I mean, I think that, and I think that your channel is, a ray of light, because frankly, whatever is going to come out is going to come out one way or the other, and keeping it in check of the acknowledgement of the dangers, but the understanding of correct use is the critical key, because it's going to come out one way or the other. But before any of this was coming out, it was occulted, and and I say it all the time just because it's so inherently true, and I didn't understand it fully until I had my own personal experiences. But right, well, what's it say? Rather than me be off one word, I might as well just read it right off the book here. First thing in this book. The lips of wisdom are sealed, but for the ears of understanding. The lips of wisdom are sealed, but for the ears of understanding. Let's
see. And I would say something different. I would say it's both, Ian. Is growth in respect to a supreme being, or growth in respect to ourselves? I'd say both. Respect to the supreme being, which I call God, for creating us, and respect to ourselves for living out our free will properly under just very few rules that we were given. I don't know.
It really is very few rules.
It is. Don't kill, respect your parents, don't commit fornication. Well, what does that mean, right? People seem to think it means sex. There's more to it than that, man. They're talking. Well,
that has to do with light body, also.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know how much Nathan wants to go into that aspect.
I'm not even going to touch that one. Yeah.
But when I was saying before that how priests and monks practice celibacy.
Ian, I didn't get into that because that's part of sex magic.
That's not part of sex magic. That's part of
when you deny yourself sex for a certain particular purpose or reason, like a priest for inner knowledge. What are you doing with that inner knowledge? For what purpose is it? To benefit mankind, to benefit you, to benefit the people around you? What is the end goal for that?
Generally speaking, when you're talking in the context of how I'm using it, it's for a greater understanding. To be able to perceive the world more organically to what it truly is at a more fundamental level.
That's fair. I got nothing to say to that. I can respect that.
Yeah, that was my purpose of, like amongst many other, that was one of my purposes of nurturing it. And frankly, the enlightenment that I personally received, not very dissimilar to what you've experienced, like a lot of stuff that I had no inkling of knowledge on, all of a sudden I found myself not only knowing certain things, but like understanding certain things, like things that like were way beyond my pay grade, way beyond my pay grade, way beyond my research, which led me to research, because then those pathways that illuminate, when you ask questions and you get answers, often the path illuminates for you to find those answers when you're in tune with that sort of thing, and provided that your intention is good and the question's proper.
So I have a question for you. Kardashev scale. We're going to go from a type 0 civilization to a type 2 civilization. Can we handle that?
No. We could do it. We could physically do it. Can mankind handle that? Not yet.
Yeah. Define
Well,
we.
but not yet.
Define we. If all
Well,
the people that can't perish, then I suppose so.
that's the thing. That's the unfortunate thing. There's going to be a lot of people to perish. You know what I mean?
You know, I don't want to really. Okay, I got to word this delicately. There's people that I know, okay, who don't have any faith. No faith at all. Like,
Yep.
no belief, no faith.
Yeah.
These people are impossible. They're impossible. They're literally impossible because they inherently tend to see the negative side of things always, because in their mind, well, it's just me and this, so I'm going to do for what's best for me and without regard for others, you know, and you know, I'm not looking at the big picture because the big picture is centered right where I'm sitting. And you know, like, and unfortunately they don't even realize it. Most of those people, they're friggin' miserable, and it's of their own effect. They don't realize that because, you know, it's everybody else around them sort of deal. And that's what it is when you have no faith and belief. Then it's sad. It's sad to see, it's sad to watch. And, you know, again, you just have to meet those people where they're at. And that's tough. It's tough when, you know, because you want to help that person, but you can't force anybody to believe or understand something that they have not had cause of their own to experience, and therefore don't.
Nope. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink it.
That's the one.
Well, we're going to have basically, let's say this, the power of the Anunnaki are attributed. You know what I mean? Everything that they could do, we could do.
Well, it wasn't their power. It was power they stole and used. But yeah.
Well, regardless of where they got it, I'm saying that that's what we'll have. We'll not have the almighty power, that's for sure, but we'll have quite a bit. That's what I'm asking if we're ready for.
No, I don't think we are. We definitely have the ability to become a type 2 civilization. In other words, control our whole planet. And I mean the whole planet, weather, heat, everything. But who would control it? A government? Multiple governments? A person? You're talking next level. That's why a lot of people that found this kind of tech, they just buried it, died with it, because they knew that this stuff is like next level to a degree that most people wouldn't even understand.
The problem with handing it to a government to control. What's the problem with handing anything for a government to control is that it's always going to be used to leverage authority and power. And, you know, what good it's better to have an opportunity to have as much, you know, I say have loosely, to attain in life what you set out to through your own hard work and perseverance, and overcoming of obstacles and so on and so forth. It's more feasible for people to actually have that dream and be able to attain that dream than it is to have Mr. McMaster up there tell you, okay, well, look how great it is, our flashing neon lights. You get everybody gets one TV, you know, and it's similar to a conversation I had with Nathan off the cast. You know, everyone gets one TV, but what if your desire is to have like two TVs? But only, no, everybody gets one TV. That's it. You know, and that's sort of the deal. Obviously, I'm saying TV, but it could be anything, not even material. You know, just going out and wanting to experience or do something. Maybe you want to go and experience another place in the world and you want to travel there. Okay, you could travel there one time, but what happens if you want to go there a second time? Now your free will is cut down to the dispersal of another.
Yeah, you're talking about governmental control.
Governmental control, right?
Yeah.
And this is why the number one thing that needs to be wiped out of humanity, okay, this is a libertarian viewpoint, is you want charity, okay? You want voluntary charity. You want people that are doing good and being okay to actually sit there and say, I have more than I need and more than I can use. So rather than me sit there and just, acquire and suck out of the system, you know what? Like I'm going to just, like voluntarily make sure that the people around me are taken care of. If everybody just took care of the people around them, not even as well as themselves, but just so people weren't struggling, then all of a sudden you'd see all sorts of problems resolve themselves. But the thing is that people are greedy and people want to make as much as they can. So they look at it as a business proposition. That business proposition is simple. You got to keep all your costs down. You got to keep all your money coming in high, right? It's the same exact equation across the board, right? So that's where people have to voluntarily want to do these things, and as soon as you force their hand, they lose incentive. So once you lose incentive, why are you then it all falls apart. Then there's no reason to do anything.
Again, that comes back to how does an energy like this actually get out? Because like you said, you can't give it to a government. And you can't put all the governments together and give it to them. We've already know what nasty crap they're going to do. So it's like, what do you do?
So let's say, just for argument's sake, this isn't an opinion. It's just, thought experiment. Exactly. Thought experiment, right? Let's say Lockheed has all the tech and has.
They have it.
And they do.
Yeah.
I feel like I know they do without knowing they do. I know they do.
You know what? They have papers with Hal Puthoff and all kinds of different physicists that they have it 100%.
So they have it, right?
Yeah.
So now they're not the government. They're holding it, but nobody's getting it. But they're the gatekeeper.
They're one of them.
The gatekeeper's not the government, but also nobody has it. But now also somebody has it, and it's them.
Let me say this: there's a gatekeeper beyond them, and it is the government.
Well, let me clarify this: all Freemasons are part of all the heads of all governments, and all governments have this tech. And I know that for a fact. Okay, and I'm saying that I absolutely mean it. This tech is every government. China has it. Russia has it.
Yeah, well, we know Russia's been having it. I mean,
States definitely has it, and they all shared it amongst their little secret groups. And it wouldn't have got shared if it wasn't for those secret groups.
There's little things that go on in our environment that are not natural that show up that tells us they have it.
Oh yeah,
there's no getting around that.
Now that's
if you've seen this in action, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So one of the things that I worry about is if that pole shift is coming.
Yeah.
See, we haven't united as a whole world yet before it happens. In some civilizations, before it happens, they have. So are we at a disadvantage in that way or an advantage? And I don't know the answer.
Disadvantage. I think that the powers that ought not be got into our education system and taught separation. And now we're at the point where there's so many different points of separation and racism and this, that, and the other that getting together, it's been made almost impossible. I'm not saying it's impossible because there's way, but almost impossible.
Well, there's going to be a point where they're going to be forced to either work as one or not. And it'll be the destruction of us all if they don't.
Well, they don't care about the destruction of us all.
Well, they're not going to make it either.
No, they have places where they're sitting in luxury and comfort and safety. They won't make it because of a different reason, but
Then we're going to repeat the cycle again.
Yeah. This cycle's going to be different.
And go figure, if they're the only survivors, guess who gets another stab at it? all the people that failed the first, will this go at it, right? Isn't that the way it goes? I don't know. It's wild to think.
See,
But maybe that's the way it's meant to be.
I was told God has given provision, and that when the time comes, it doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter how evil they get or how dark the game they play. The people that need to walk out will, and they're the ones to restart what's coming next. And there isn't a damn thing they can do about it, regardless of what they believe or want to believe.
See, but there is also the point to be made where, like, we tend to look at things on the global scale as far as like what their governments do. But the governments really only represent a very small portion of the overall population. Like, one thing that you could see from, like if you go to like YouTube videos of like people who travel throughout the world and stuff like that, is that there's way less like hate of others than you've been led to believe, like on the societal level. And of course there's extremist organizations, of course there's all these outliers, but these are not majorities.
No,
these are not majorities. Like, and these generalizations are made slightly out of stereotype, but also slightly out of which is fine, because it can be like a running joke, but the stereotype isn't real hate. But what the governments do, like, and again, this is a small percentage of the whole. They just happen to hold the majority of power.
So hold on. I think that this tech is coming out at this time so that we can give it to others to have around the world for the reason you said. And at that time, either the right people are going to come up and show you how to convert it or not. And it may not be a government thing, but the tech will be out there where everybody can achieve it. So my concern is you know what I mean? Do you have the right people in some capacity to be able to teach them to convert it?
Are you asking me, or are you just like in general?
Well, I'm asking you, Gerald, because this is one of the things in your wheelhouse.
Is there a way to teach this tech like easily? Is that what you're asking?
Well, you don't have to teach the tech. You just have to teach the conversion. So, like, for instance, I'll show you how things are working in one portion of it, right? One layer. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
I'm not showing you how to do it in 20 layers. So you have to make a conversion in order to make it work for things you would need later.
You mean, can I explain it simply and easily for everyone to understand so they can put it together themselves? Is that what you mean?
They're going to have to, because the government isn't united.
No, I've already got that. When I keep saying I'm writing my book, I neglect to say the secondary book that's being written. I'm writing 2 books at the same time. They're both the same book, but one's in layman's terms and one's in half psychological, half scientific terms. So, yeah, there's a way of explaining exactly how to put this together very simply that anyone can understand, just like maybe 10, 11 years old from that point on. So, yeah, if an 11-year-old can understand it and build it, then anybody can. And that's how the second book is being written.
So,
well, don't take this the wrong way. With the flame under the pot on high burn, fast boil, brother, you better get your ass in gear and getting that out, or else,
Well, I'm almost done, that's for sure. But
so hold on. I'm going to answer this question, and I think you're going to answer it too. But if the system has so many moving parts, there are even cards that don't even show up in the schematic. But so many moving parts can be failure. So this tech is the easiest thing in the world, but will absolutely blind you in how it's put together unless you're given how it's done.
Yeah, and there is no moving parts. Nothing in it has moving parts. It's all solid state. 100%.
So here, if you have a pole shift coming, okay, you have your tech, you have Tesla's tech that Nathan's playing with, right? We can assume the mechanism of the flip. Is it possible to charge the earth to prevent it?
You don't want to prevent it. If you try and prevent it, it'll be worse.
It tear itself apart.
It'll be worse.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah. No, go with the flow, man. That's about her. That's what else do you do?
Well, as humans, we try to prevent it.
Well, I get that, and
Usually.
I would try and prevent it, but you're talking planetary scale.
They're going to try to do something.
Oh, they're going to try, but it's not just planetary. It's like solar system wide, right? So let's say you did manage to stop the shift on Earth. You're going to screw up the shift throughout the whole solar system. Maybe crack the sun in half. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know what.
Maybe rip a hole in the ether, get dumped into there, and then just be stuck in superposition.
You don't want to turn the veil for the whole Earth, man. That would be very bad.
Well, you got to wonder too, if we're going through a pole shift, will other planets go through a pole shift as well?
Absolutely. The whole freaking universe is going through a pole shift. We're all interconnected, man. It's like putting a bunch of magnets in a circle and you flip one. Well, the next one's going to flip and the next one's going to flip until they're all in the right position and back to normal.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
Nope. No, it won't be. But it is what it is. It's been predicted for hundreds of years, if not thousands. Even the Bible predicts it.
So I got a question that just popped into my head. Venus. They always say aliens came for Venus, right? We know what Venus is right now. We know that's not possible. Not with when it crushes you when you go to the surface. So my question is that a time change that they would have had to pass through to give the knowledge they have to give us? If it's even true as a as a fact.
You mean, did they have time tech?
Well, yeah. Okay, so if they came from Venus, they would have to come through time. There's no way to get around that. Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So they'd have to have time tech.
Yeah. They do. So you can't have this tech without having time tech. I don't talk about it much because it freaks people out.
So did they come to save the best of us to get to the next level?
Well, it depends. I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't think aliens do anything for anything but aliens. Right? So that's just me. That's how I believe. But
yeah. I mean, hey, listen, we could go full woo and say one of two things about that subject. You know, and Gerald and I have talked about, well, not directly, but in the chat and stuff. Like, first off, you know, there's a potential that we have something that they don't, that they're pissed off and jealous about.
Well, yes. Go ahead.
All right. So that's one potential thing.
Yeah,
the other potential thing is, you know, we may well be what they lack. And that goes back to the whole soul crusher, you know, alien situation where they, you know, suck your ethereal loosh and dwell off your suffering and your soul. And, you know,
I think they used to have free will. Honestly, I think there was a lot of races of aliens that had free will. But throughout time, they fucked up repetitively and their ability to procreate got taken away. So they started stealing it from other races because they figured out how to do it through incubators. Okay, well, great, good for you. But they still had to steal certain genetic codes in order to continue to do it. Well, I don't know. I personally think that they shouldn't be here. That's my belief. And are they coming to save us? Not a fucking chance. They're coming to save whatever it is that they want on this planet. You're just a piece of the action, nothing more.
But are
If
they
you
here?
had tech
I
that
don't
was-
know. I don't think they are. I think the government's here though.
Well, yeah. I'm just saying if they existed, right?
Them
We're in the
government boys. They
Yeah.
hard at work and lies.
Well, truth be known, yeah, I believe that too. And you got to
Oh,
think
man.
this tech, because it creates fields around the ship, it would also, if you had this tech and was able to manipulate it, you can create a field around yourself. So the person outside of it would see something different than what's inside the field if you so chose it, right? So who knows? Could be something like that. We're in the woo, of course, but you know.
Yeah.
It was a full woo disclaimer before I said any of it. And I always say, I don't always believe the things that I talk about, but I still talk about it because it's out there. Like this stuff is out there.
That's just bad. Sheeps and boots. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Sheeps and boots. What about the guy making the boots out of the sheep? Can I be him?
Oh, sorry.
Leather work, man. Leather
It
work
popped in my head as soon as you went to the woo. I'm sorry.
If we're going to live in the woo, give me my sword and get out of the way.
Wow.
Yeah, the woo. You can say a lot about the woo. When I say we're talking woo, it's like it's possible. What we're talking about is possible, but it's such a slim chance it's improbable. That's the woo, right?
Well, when something has, empirical evidence, to suggest that it's not impossible, then like it could be a thing.
Yeah.
And I've seen some strange stuff, so like almost nothing would surprise me.
Wait until I find out how to negate gravity and find out how easy it is. Of course, I don't think they want everybody to know about negating gravity, so I'm not sure how much they're going to release. Although there was a release from Space NASA News talking about it. I didn't quite catch the whole article, but interesting stuff what's happening right now.
I mean, I get why the whole gravity thing is a big deal, but I've always been a proponent of saying that if you have one, you have them all, and it's not the gravity is small beans.
It's not
like the gravity stuff is small beans because like what good does it do you outside of this earth? And what does it, I mean, yeah, it's more capable, faster, more maneuverable, this, that, the other thing than like what we use, but it's analogous to something we already have. Where's the real problem come in? Well, it comes in with time dilation and
that's why
the ability to zip out of time space. That's where the problem is.
That's why they want anti-gravity, because anti-gravity isn't what most people think it is. If you can negate gravity, you automatically negate time, and you can have free energy, and you can have instantaneous, the thing we can't talk about on this channel.
It's because it's not a cause, it's an effect.
Yeah, with anti-gravity, you get all those things, but you can also have...
But that's what gravity is, it's
energy,
an effect.
Right? You can have just free energy and not anti-gravity. Or you can have like, two parts and not anti-gravity. But anti-gravity is the whole kit and caboodle. In their mind, right?
So real quick, guys, I'm going to give a shameless plug.
Do it!
If you see this on here, guys, if you join this channel as a member, you get the emojis on there and you're able to throw them up in the chat just so everybody knows. So in case you wanted to do that, it says holes on the screen, but it shows the holes when you're on the chat. So I just wanted to throw that in my shameless plug. But look, the anti-gravity thing and the whole thing, look, it is an effect. It's not a cause. We have it written in our technology as that it's a cause. It's not. It's the effect of time dilation, not space-time. So I know a lot of people get out there on their high horse and talk about space-time. It's not that. It's time dilation. And that's the force that creates gravity. And you can see it. Sure. Yeah, but you can see it clear as day. Yeah. If you actually look at the technology and what's going on, it's pretty clear which one it is.
But there is also a difference between time dilation and removing yourself from time space. There
is a form of pausing time. Well,
yeah.
it's regressing time to the point where you paused it.
Now there is the situation where if you amplify and reach coherency at the moment of rest at over Planck's distance, that the flip book that is our reality of time, space, and time dilation, that we live in, we are then a onlooker of that flip book.
Can I elaborate on that? Because you're getting something that's kind of a misconception that most people don't get. And I'm going to say this from experience. You're right in the sense where in time dilation, when your inner bubble balances with your outer bubble, your time is different than the time that's outside that bubble.
Oh, but absolutely and entirely.
Yeah, the two need to meld together before that dilation is created. Up until then, you're filling the bubble that you've created, the shell, with ether. And until it becomes overflowed, your capacitance of your inner bubble to your outer bubble will stay separated.
Okay, so I want to go a step further and build on what you're saying and tell me if you agree or not. But when you're in a state of time dilation, okay, and you're the one experiencing it, okay, if you then, okay, are activated, like the whole purpose of this episode with your light body, okay, that awareness then expands as the time slows. So your awareness becomes wider, and actually would fill the space that you're filling. Like as far as what your ethereal body is, the more that the time is dilated, the more that it's a density issue.
Yes and no. In the Bible, it says you are to be of one mind and one heart. Why is that? Because when this tech is running, you're to be of one mind and one heart. Why? Because when you're in that bubble, you're coherent with that bubble. So if there's multiple...
Hold on, I'm going to interject just real quick because that's actually beautiful. Your mind and your heart is part of your operating system that allows for the expansion. There's a bit of a relationship, but it's not. But it's not the same.
Okay, so it doesn't allow for the expansion, but it interacts with the expansion through coherence.
Okay, I mean that's fair enough.
Okay, so when the time dilation bubble was being built, that was what gave me the ability to move the mouse on my computer without physically moving my hand to the mouse. Because I was coherent with the energy in the bubble itself.
It's an expansion because you reached out and performed the function outside of your reach or without reaching.
I thought about it before I moved my hand and the mouse reacted. So yeah, I was.
So it's an expanse, right? Yeah. Which is, by the way, how remote viewing and so on works.
So there's another aspect of this, though. There's a sound that's given off when the bubble's being created. It's a high-pitched ultrasonic sound. If you're not ready, and I say that in a general sense, if you haven't dealt with your traumas in your life and been cleared of the negativity in your heart, that sound is going to irritate the shit out of you. And you're not going to want to be part of it. You're going to want it to be shut off immediately. Just saying. That's
what's funny about that sound, because I know the pitch, is that if you're in a better place, you'll hear it and accept it and absorb it and let it run throughout you. Okay. But you will also, being consciously aware, be like, wow, that is you'll say to yourself, like, this should really be pissing me off. But it's not. It doesn't. It just simply
you don't
doesn't.
even think of it that way. Actually, it becomes part of the whole experience. It's almost like
it does. It melds. It melds right into it all. You don't even notice it after a point.
Yeah. Think of like the sun. You're in a room full of glass windows and the sun's shining through, and it's like the most gorgeous freaking sunset you can imagine, and it's nice and warm on your skin, and you're in the best mood. You know, you got everything you want, your beer sipping, so whatever it is that keeps you happy at that moment, and you're just on top of the world. That's how that bubble is. Know what I mean?
I certainly do. yeah, I do. Been there. Been there a couple times.
And I speak that from experience, and that was one of the experiences that I have the affidavit signed off for, because there was 5 people in that bubble, right? And we all felt the same thing. It was a very interesting experience. So yeah, yep. When dealing with time, you, like I said, there's a code in the Bible. And it talks about certain things. The Bible teaches in layers. When it says to be of one mind and one accord or one heart, it's because of that fact. If you had one evil person in the group or dark-hearted guy, they couldn't withstand it. You'd have to shut it down right away. Nobody experiences nothing. You know what I mean? It's like one piece of unleavened yeast, or one piece of yeast spoils the whole unleavened bread, right? Because now the whole bread's yeastful. It's the same effect. But yeah, time dilation is interesting. I'm not sure if an evil person could on his own do it. I have no idea.
So let me take a shot at this real quick. You guys covered the other aspect of it. Anti-gravity is simply a disruption of the time dilation field. That's it. It's resonating something inside of a time dilation field that disrupts the resonance between the 2 barriers or the 2 fields that's being created. That's why it's not a frequency, it's a resonance frequency. When you get to a resident frequency, you can disrupt gravity. That's why it's so hard to find, because people misunderstand frequency and resonance as one thing. They're not. They understand resident frequency as resonance frequency, and it's not. And it's only when you get to all 3 that you have an amplification high enough to disrupt the time dilation in that particular area, because time dilation field goes out in waves or field bubbles. You have to be able to break that field bubble in order to break the gravity put upon you. So it's all interconnected. That's why when you have one and you understand how to build it, you can reverse how to build it in order to cheat it.
Yeah, I don't know about cheating. When you're in a time dilation bubble, certain things occur. There's a bunch of anomalies that happen. And if you don't shut the bubble down properly, you're opening a door to things that sneak through.
I didn't disagree with that. I was just saying anti-gravity is this reverse.
No, you're right. It's an aspect of it. Yeah, definitely an aspect. I just don't know how you would, and this is the thing I'm having a hard time with. I agree with you. I don't know how you would equate that mathematically yet. Like, I can't figure out how you would, if it's a time dilation bubble, once you negate gravity, how do you turn it, or not turn it, but how do you control the energy to the part where you're raising your ship and lowering it, or your bubble at very fine degrees? That part I haven't got.
Because the process is different. You're not, okay, by negating gravity, you're not creating motion. You're negating gravity. The process of movement is different than the process of breaking the gravity.
Yeah,
2 separate motions.
We've talked about this before.
So
I pitched the idea of throwing fields of like opposite polar fields right outside the bubble, because then it's just endlessly attracted to that.
So
to that surface,
hold on.
And then it would just endlessly accelerate.
Let me say this so that people understand this. This is why this is very important when you build stuff. Ion lifters are not ion based. They do not work on ion wind. Some do when they're so light. Okay? Those are the junk ones. The other ones convert the field. That pushes you up and gives you motion at unlimited speed. That's the difference. If you can understand that right now, who was it who was just talking on APEC about it? The guy that works with all the static electricity. He said he was changing how his outlook works on it, right? And it's because he went from static electricity field that gives you a very little amount and a set amount of like a weight on a scale. Then now he's switching. And what is he switching to? He's switching to the understanding that once you change the field on it, you can get 10 times the pressure on it. And that's why it's so important when you have a lifter that can put weight on it and lift it, you started to understand where you're going. You now have it. Now, what is one of the big keys to this tech, Gerald? The number one thing that interacts with it.
I don't know. I figured out a way of explaining it a little differently, but what's
I didn't follow that, how you framed that. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I guess it's in a building aspect. Let me put it this way. My Gravity Flyer, it has a hover mode and then it has a lift mode.
Okay, so that's kind of what the way I was going to explain it a little differently for both those aspects, but go ahead.
But the hover mode is basically breaking gravity, but it sits in one spot. So it's not lifting, it's not falling, it's sitting in one spot. It's sitting in between the time dilation of each level. Each level is not what you think it is. It's not huge bubbles. It's particular frequencies as it goes out. That's what it is.
Right, gradient frequency.
But it's a resonance. So now, if you understand that, you understand why crystal is so important. The piezo aspect is vastly important to this. John Hutchinson figured it out. Alexi figured it out. They understood that to get to cold energy, you must have something that reacts to it.
Yeah, beat frequency.
Well,
beat frequency.
It's the amplification of that frequency gets you to jump because it'll happen in one direction if you want it to. You could put it in both directions and stay in the same place. You could put it in one direction and amplify one way. So it's like having an antenna on top of your main field, and your main field is always chasing that little bit and it can never catch it. So just like you said, that's the exact process of what's going on here.
It's a horse and a carrot.
Yep, it is. So when I say to Gerald, I really think you should put a piezoelectric disc over your coil and just tripod it over it and see if it jumps. Because it's amplifying your field that's in the center, and we know that this energy works with piezoelectricity to amplify.
Gerald's like, yeah, I've never tried that before.
No. Gerald has, let me say this, and I said it on the live, so I think it's all right. I have one field of energy I create in my Tesla coil, okay? Right now, we're working on amplifying that to multiple stages of energy. It's not that I'm changing the energy. I have to find out how to put it in the energy multiplier. Therefore, I needed a diode to do it. The configuration of Gerald's coil creates a natural diode as it goes up. It also creates a natural turn. Now, I have to be able to interpret that in my Tesla coil the same way in order to build the same effect. It's important that the one field builds upon the other and that they amplify together, because if not, the whole process is worthless.
The cascade effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like
I need a Townsend effect.
I was doing experiments earlier today. I bought one of those magnetic pole detectors. I can't find a pole. There's no pole in my coils.
It wouldn't be.
Where does Santa Claus live?
No, it's scalar. There is no pole.
No, there's no pole at all. I can pick up a magnetic field, my tri-field meter, but nothing on my pole meter.
You're creating the pole with the piezo. Put it on both sides. We can go everywhere we want. Put your little C-shaped things on the outside of it. We can go directionally wherever we want.
Yeah.
Can you hit it with thermal?
Yes.
You have thermal?
He is playing with thermal.
You know what? I'm going to do a thermal video right away on that.
I think that if you hit that with thermal, I think that might answer some questions as to things that are claimed.
Yeah, actually, you know what? It shows when I hit it with thermal, it shows a flow which looks like heat, but the temperature in that heat flow is lower than the temperature of the surrounding around the surrounding of the coil in the room itself.
The ambient heat, huh?
Yeah, it's freaking crazy.
So
Go ahead.
yeah, that's interesting because that's basically how it's messing with IR light at that point.
It's part of it.
Yep.
Sorry, I had to throw something in the dryer there. Yeah, that's definitely part of it. The infrared light. It's the complete control of heat. Heat's not even a problem for me at all. In fact, I can add heat and add more voltage to it, like just with a candle, which they say is impossible, but I've done it multiple times. I
So
don't see no Nobel Peace Prize knocking on my door, though.
So let me ask you: when you look at it through thermal and you back up a little bit, is it red compared to the ambient simply surrounding it, or
No,
is it
it only goes yellow? Like I can't
yellow?
even red. My coil won't even.
Okay, well, whatever the color, I mean, whatever the temperature color relationship differential is, I'm just said red because that's
Yeah,
easy.
yeah.
But so let's say it's yellow and blue. I mean, so the blue surrounding the coil, right? Does that gradient out to an ambient temperature in the room? Like, is it a temperature drop in the surrounding bubble around the coil, so to speak?
Okay, so the way that the last video I did showed was the outer ambient temperature was at like 23 degrees. Turn the coil on, it was at 24 for a little bit, then it went down to 23, then it went down to 22, and in the inner open core, it was at 19. Then the outside of the room dropped 1 degree. That's
Okay.
when I shut it off. So does it cool the room? Absolutely. But it does it in a sequence, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, I can control the heat of the room through the coil itself, or the heat of the system, or the cold for that matter. I can put the cold where I want it to go. Right? I actually put it into myself one day. Don't ever do that. I had the chills for an hour and I couldn't warm up. It sucked.
That went right through you, huh?
Oh man, right to the bone. Like I was cold. And it was plus 32 outside Celsius. So there's no way I should have been shivering. It is what it is, right? When you play with this energy, know what you're doing or you can hurt yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Like I said, I've been doing it for quite a while. Nathan's actually been picking up pretty fast. I've been doing it for 14 years. It took me a while. But I had nobody telling me where to look and where not to look. I had to do a lot of experimentation. I mean, don't get me wrong. The Lord led me to look in certain spots, but I still had to do the research. I had to pound the pavement, right? Do the experiment, electrocute myself here and there. That's the only way you're going to find this stuff.
Yeah, there's no free lunch. That's how it goes.
And don't believe the fucking PhD physics community. Oh my gosh. I feel so bad for those guys. Like, I really do, man.
They're
so
being decimated
on
right now on fairly mainstream platforms, and
That's because they're one-minded.
they're getting beat up, man.
They're stuck on one track. Like, they can't think outside the box. And the minute you say the words free energy, oh my God, they have meltdowns.
You have pretty high profile people that did very, very high profile things saying that this was purposely done this way. Period. End of story. Thank you very much. Take your PhD and your thesis and shove it in the garbage and get prepared to learn some new stuff if you even want to continue with this. Unfortunately, I think that's going to lead to a big psychological break in a lot of these people because
well, that's
how
the
it goes.
thing. Nobody
Waste
wanted
your entire life.
Well, nobody wanted to bite the hand that fed them, right? Now we're at the point where The people are sick of it. They want answers, and you go to the physics community, and all you get is the same repetitive bullshit over and over, and there's nothing new.
Yeah, but even the ones that pretend to be skeptical and stuff aren't even skeptical. Like, they're the biggest fucking naysayers in the world, and it's kind of annoying, to be honest with you. And they don't want to talk to anybody doing this stuff. They'll just pick out like the article that they saw and then do their research based on that. And that they go out into the field and talk to people that are actually doing this stuff. Like, you ought to.
You guys, real quick, I'm sorry. Either I got to leave in 5 minutes, or you guys can continue the conversation, and I'll just go real quick and come back.
I got to take off too. I got to get ready for a dinner, actually.
Yeah, I think 3 hours of light body is pretty good.
Yeah, we barely scratched the surface, man. If I pulled out all my notes, like there's
I hear you.
I get into it. There's a formula.
I could go into how to get to places and how to experience things and some of my experiences. We could leave that for another day, though. That's super nuanced and
absolutely
on a very, it's like a personal level thing. It's like less of a, hey, let's talk about light body, its connection to everything and all that.
So since Nathan asked to leave right away, I'll bring this up. I found a formula on how to run a house without a furnace, and it will heat your house, heat your hot water, and grow your food at the same time, as well as giving you energy and no solar panels involved.
Wow.
So there's a formula to it, and I'm going to share it in the future.
That's good.
Yeah, you have to have a grow room in your house, but if you're growing food, what's the downfall? And you're capturing all that moisture that you put into your plants, you're pulling it out of the air, right? So you're recollecting it, or whatever they call it, and then there's a word for it. My brain farted there. And then the on the walls of the grow room itself, you have solar water heat panels, which goes to your hot water tank, which heats your hot water, right?
But wouldn't people would like be very apt to have that and dedicate a room in their house or whatever for that exact purpose if the system was there where it's like almost a borderline automated thing where all you really have to do
all automated.
Yeah. So if like you're not worried about a power bill and it's dedicated and it's circulating water and it's putting earth energy into the environment so it has good growing properties, and like if whatever your system entails, right? If that's all done and it's automated and it's just part of an integral thing that your home is also using, I think people would be very apt to have that sort of situation in their house so they can go pick a head of lettuce and some tomatoes and some wheat or whatever they're doing.
Like a new way of building the new houses, so to speak. Incorporate a grow room into it that helps with all the bills and everything, right?
And at the end of the day, right now, it's just too much work, commitment, and cost for people to want to get involved in something like that.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. To do it just to retrofit a house, it's a little bit expensive. I could do it. I know how to do it, but not everybody does. So
not only that, but just to run the thing is a lot. Like, you'd be better off going to the grocery store most of the time, unless you're growing like cocaine.
Oh, wow.
You need more room for that there, Joe.
Yeah.
Wow. Listen, maybe it's America. We got big houses, except for me.
Yeah, that's true. We went totally sideways on that one, but
yeah, we did. we took a Joe left turn.
Listen, you got to justify the cost somehow.
Oh, I hear you.
Not that way. We're not all going to jail, buddy.
I know.
Listen, I'm not growing cocaine. I don't even do no drugs.
I'm reading in the comment sections that it's illegal to catch rainwater in some states, and it's illegal to grow your own food in some states.
Yeah.
Man, didn't they do that in World War II?
The problem is the bureaucracies here. And you know what? They had a lot of rights taken away from them recently. The bureaucracies through
that was the land of the free.
Getting knocked out.
We're not allowed to meme Gavin Newsom.
So what? It's like no longer the land of the free. It's more the land of the slave and home of the.
Well, a little bit, but it's definitely freer than Canada.
Yeah. Well, hey,
So,
dude, Venezuela's freer than Canada. You know what I'm saying?
hey, listen. At
I
least
ain't
your people
picking
had
on
the
you. I'm
at least your
way
people had the
worse.
balls to sit there and say they had no confidence in their leader and call for election. Yeah,
Yeah, dude, I'm of no illusion. I got no confidence in that.
we haven't
kid.
had a president in 4 years. No, everyone's like, let it ride, let it ride,
That's okay. We haven't had a
let it
prime
ride.
minister in
We got lucky. We got lucky. We got big time lucky.
Yeah, well,
You guys
with,
aren't
with,
at it yet, unfortunately.
with a little less than a month to go, all we could do is cross our fingers.
Yeah, that's it, man.
All right, guys, I gotta get going.
All right.
Hey, guys, it's been a real awesome time. I want to thank the chat, guys. You've been awesome. Thank you, Gerald. Thank you, Joe. This
Yep,
has really
thank you.
been one of the best conversations, and honestly, I could go on for 2 more hours if I didn't have to leave. So,
For sure.
The chat's awesome. You guys have brains and intellect and morals like I've never seen.
Well,
Awesome.
listen, we'll do a to be continued part 2 on this at some point, and
Definitely.
thank you, Gerald, for joining us on this, man. I appreciate that, and it's
No,
always good
thank you
talking to
guys
you.
for having me. It's been an honor. It's awesome.
All right, folks.
thank you very much, and have yourself a great day.
Till next Saturday. Peace and love.